Welcome again to another episode of Scary But Not That Scary, where I literally just came up with the name of that, so I think it's pretty awesome.
Right now?
Yeah.
That's
Sounds
weird.
like a pretty good podcast name, didn't you think?
It's weird that he came up with right now because I already put it on the newsletter. Oh, I'm sorry.
Anyway.
So speaking of the newsletter, we have a new shiny newsletter. You can pick this up on the counter. We also have it on the website. In the first issue, we have this nice list of movies you can watch during the month of October.
And so now we're going to talk about movies.
That's a good thing to talk about.
Yeah.
And we have a list of spooky month movies to watch.
Spoopies.
There are 20 movies on this list. We have 4 different categories, so we tried to divide things out a little bit. There are family Halloween movies, which are things that are Halloween vibes, but also kid-friendly. Halloween time movies, so things that are probably rated R, but a big feature of the movie is that it happens on or around Halloween, or involves things like trick-or-treating and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's straight up nightmares, which is stuff that ruins your brain when you watch it. But
and afterwards.
And then you want to watch it again for some reason.
Well.
And then the last category is movies you've probably never seen. We've seen, but you have probably never seen.
I mean, we're not trying to be arrogant. We just kind of...
Or hipsters.
We're such hipsters that we know you haven't seen it because we're that being cool.
That's true.
You could tell by the way we sit here and how cool we are.
Do you think we could have a podcast where we just sit here and people would still watch it?
No. Because no one watched the first one. I think my mom did.
Too soon.
Too soon to comment on if anybody watched the first one.
All right. So in light of that first one, let's start talking about movies and do it a little faster.
Cool. Let's do it.
All right. So what'd you think, Joe? I enjoyed several of these.
That was my favorite one. Well, probably.
That's probably too quick.
Oh.
All right. So first category, we're just going to run through these and then talk about the ones that catch our eye, catch our ear, whatever. I mean, we made the list, but...
Right.
All right. So family Halloween movies. We got Frankenweenie. The 2012 version, not the original short, the actual full animated one. Monster House, Ernest Scared Stupid, Paranorman, and my personal favorite on this list, Garfield's Halloween Adventure.
Yes.
So I think
can't be scared of a scaredy cat. Oh.
I have watched that every single year since the first year we saw it.
Since the first year we were born.
It came out in 85. So I would have been 4. We might not have watched it that year.
If it was on TV, you watched it. Which it probably was.
I can't remember a Halloween where I didn't watch it.
Because it was on TV every Halloween. And that was the only thing to look forward to as a child.
Great for kids. It's a little bit scary. They do go to a place where there's ghosts.
Ghost Island.
Yeah. With a pirate. And that guy tells that story and he's a little creepy.
Oh, that's right.
Gets a little more intense than you think it would for a Garfield thing, but not too bad. And obviously, you know, as kids, we loved it. And everybody you talk to about it, they all...
I mean, it still holds up. If you like Garfield, which I do. My entire room used to be covered in Garfield stuff. And by used to, I mean, it still does.
Yeah.
That's not true.
The other one I want to mention on this list is Frankenweenie, because it's got amazing animation and a great third act.
It does.
And it's a good monster movie for little kids. It's a little weird. I mean, he resurrects his dead dog. So...
I personally enjoy the short.
It's not too safe.
I enjoy the short a little bit more just because it's got the kid from Neverending Story is the kid. And then it's got the late, great woman from The Shining that I just blanked on her name.
Shelley
Duvall.
Shelley Duvall is in it. And one of the Wet Bandits is in it.
Daniel Stern.
As the dad. And
one of the
brother is... one of the brothers is the little brother from Wonder Years, the original Wonder Years. Yeah. Anyway, and it's only I think it's not even half an hour long, but it's extremely creative, and there's so many Tim Burton things in it. Even throughout the animated one, there's so many Tim Burton things.
Yeah.
Anyway, you should watch it if you haven't seen it. It's fantastic.
Yes. All right, moving on. Next category is Halloween time movies. In this category, our 5 movies are the 2007 Trick or Treat, Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, House of a Thousand Corpses, Donnie Darko, and Sleepy Hollow. We're going to have to come back to Sleepy Hollow later. I want to talk about House of a Thousand Corpses for a second.
Okay.
I know that you don't agree with me, but I really like that movie.
I don't disagree that you like it. If that helps.
Fair enough. I like that it feels like a roller coaster ride through like a not too scary haunted house. Feels like Rob Zombie felt like it was the one chance he was going to get to make a movie. So he just kind of threw everything in there.
That is a really good way to look at it. I think I only dislike it because I thought it was going to be something that was almost unwatchable for me. Like, I thought it was going to be so crazy and so over the top that when I was in the theater that I was just going to like poop my pants. And instead I just peed. So it was really boring.
Yeah, you wanted Terrifier before Terrifier existed.
I don't even know if I wanted that. I think, yes, I did. Yeah. You're right. You're not wrong.
All right, so I am going to come back to Sleepy Hollow way later. Donnie Darko?
Never heard of it. Is that new?
Watch Donnie Darko if you haven't seen it.
Watch Donnie Darko.
Do not watch the director's cut.
Super stupid.
They give away way too much.
It's like having the movie spoon-fed to you. Yeah. And you're like, I get it. It's Donnie Darko.
It's a lot better with the intrigue and not having all of the extra narrative in it.
So let's switch slightly into why is it so much better to watch a movie that is actually set in Halloween time? What is it about watching a Halloween movie that makes it so much more, I don't know, like,
I think there's pleasurable? A couple of things.
Gross.
I think there's a couple of things. I think one for me is that it took a while before I actually started watching horror.
Same.
Liking a lot of intense type of movies. And to me, watching it around Halloween was always like the entrance ramp because it felt more appropriate for the season. And something about it made it feel like both more connected just to like the time and what was going on. And then also less frightening.
I think it's because you're already, like you said, the on-ramp scenario, that was a good yes, because you already think you're going to be scared because it's Halloween.
Right.
So it just kind of glides you in. And then when it becomes scary, you're like, of course this is scary. It's Halloween.
Yeah, but if you watch like, Texas Chainsaw Massacre on Valentine's Day, it's a different vibe.
Slightly.
I would say I think that's it. Like, I like that feeling of, just the Halloween night feeling of like, kids being out in the neighborhood, going trick-or-treating, remembering doing that.
Yes.
Now handing out candy.
I think maybe that's probably more so. I think that's where I would agree with you even more so. Like, it gives me that feeling of, boy, oh boy, do I miss trick-or-treating. And also, I love that any trick-or-treating movie, it seems like the entire friggin' neighborhood is out trick-or-treating. And I'm like, who's giving out candy? If everybody's out and everybody has spectacular costumes.
Yeah.
Which always makes me really happy, but at the same time, I'm always very jealous because I always just had the mask that was plastic that would just...
Yeah.
And it would cut my tongue because I was always tonguing it.
Well, because you were trying to get the hole to be bigger so you could actually breathe.
Yeah, I would try to get the candy through there. And
then you're like, now I can't breathe and my tongue is bleeding.
Yeah. So it made it extra scary.
I think I was thinking about this before with some of the holidays. Like, obviously, Thanksgiving is all about family, like getting extended family together. Christmas is all about like your immediate family having that nice day and whatever else. But I feel like Halloween is the one that feels like it's a block party. Like it feels like the whole town is doing something. Like,
everyone's equally excited and not stressed out.
There will be a Halloween parade here in town, and it will be thousands of people out there.
Thousands of people. And I will be open late that night. So whenever you leave the Halloween parade, stop by the store if you want. If not, that's fine.
Quick plug. We are doing a
quick plug.
Lucky 13 drawing.
Oh, yeah.
On Halloween night for a $13 gift card.
Yeah.
So come in and get in that raffle if you want. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited.
If you would like the details of it, I don't remember what they are, so you're going to have to read the newsletter.
It's on the website. Newsletter, which is on the website now.
Boom.
Because we're doing things. Moving on up.
Moving on up.
All right. Moving on sideways down the page. Next category. Straight up nightmares.
Ooh, this one gives me nightmares.
So these are things that are super intense the entire way through. So we have Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is, it's got a reputation for a reason.
I know of it.
Mother. The Shining. Hereditary. And The Ring. The first one I'm going to say something about here is Mother. I love that movie. I think that movie is a horror movie only because somebody asked if Darren Aronofsky wanted to make a horror movie, and he was like, "What's horrifying to me?" And he was like, "Oh, a stress nightmare that I can't wake up from, and then waking up in a panic. I hate that feeling." And so he made that and filmed it. And then when you watch it, it's like you are having that nightmare.
It's on point.
I don't know why that's fun. But
I effing hate. I effing hate. I actually really. I mean, I love the movie itself, but boy, oh boy, do I hate watching it.
It is, yeah. It's
just kind of mostly a contradiction there, but I mean,
it's a good point though, because it gets right to that Halloween and horror movie thing of just like, why is any of this enjoyable?
Right.
Like, why is a jump scare something where you're like, I hated that, do it again. Right?
There's not really any jump scares in that.
No.
It's mostly just anxiety driven.
I was going to say, it's mostly just starts off a little unsettling and confusing and then just gets unbearably stressful.
Yeah.
Until, it's over. In the theater, one of us, right as soon as it was over, said, well, if you ever wondered if other people's stress nightmares are like yours, that's the answer. And the answer is yes. Because that's all that movie is.
What else is on there?
The Shining, which is The Shining. If you haven't seen it, do see it. We don't need to say anything else about it.
Everybody has said things about The Shining, and it's fantastic still.
The Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Never heard of that one, so I have to check that one out.
I mean, it's literally from 1974, and it is literally still probably the most stressful movie you can watch.
Wow.
I mean, it just has an intensity that, even compared to Mother, like
it's a different kind of stress.
Yeah. I mean, it just feels like it's made to do things to your brain that just make you want to get away from it. Because it just, I mean, by the end of that movie, it just feels like it's been...
Well, also everybody in the movie is trying to get away from the movie, so...
Yeah, but it's just like, just the sound of the chainsaw, by the end of it, you just realize it's kind of been shredding your nerves for the entire runtime.
Yeah, who'd have thought that would be a thing that you would just be afraid of a chainsaw sound?
Yeah.
And now everybody that is a lumberjack has diapers.
Not to get into too many spoilers for a 50-year-old movie, but the last frame of that movie, as it smash cuts to the credits, you hear the chainsaw running. Like, it just doesn't stop until it just stops.
I hate it.
And then you're like, well, I hope he doesn't come by my house. All right, so movies you've probably never seen. This is cult, obscure, underseen, trash, good, bad, whatever.
Yeah.
But these are things that are good to watch around Halloween. The first one is, I'm going to run through the list and then we'll circle back and talk.
Fine.
Mandy. The WNUF Halloween special. Hack-O-Lantern. The Ritual. and Chopping Mall. I feel like I should have reordered these so that like The Ritual is at the top because it's the most like a real movie.
Are you basing that off of me just laughing about all of them?
A little bit. Let's start with probably the least interesting on this list, which is still an amazing movie, is The Ritual. The Ritual was made somewhere in...
I don't know where it was made.
Cut this before.
It was made in the woods. And then maybe somehow got into a convenience store as well.
When you see it, you'll realize it's very much made in the woods.
It is very much made in the woods.
It would be hard to make a movie this in the woods without going to the woods. Because it's like, just when you think there's like, you're like, that's all the trees. There's more trees.
There's so many trees in it.
Because you're like, this is like the woods that they're in.
It is like the woods.
Of all the things in the movie, I believe it's in the woods the most.
There's a lot of creepy wood things in it, though.
So, The Ritual is...
It's a bunch of crap.
The Ritual is about these guys that suffer a tragedy as a group. They lose one of the members of their group, so to kind of memorialize him, they go out into the woods on a hiking adventure.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest of them have a bad time.
Yeah. The one guy, spoiler alert, he hurts his ankle, and then you're just so fucking annoyed with him the whole time, and you're just like, God,
but it's...
Just die.
It's like we said in the last episode, though, like the writing is very true to character. Like it feels like a group of guys. They are having the appropriate response to, like, a couple of people are like, come on, let's help him. And a couple of people are like, he's not hurt that bad. He needs to walk. We've got 6 more days of walking to do.
Right.
Without spoiling anything else, it goes crazy. And I love the way the movie ends because it pays off in way more ways than it deserves to.
It's very, very good. It's kind of, I don't know. I feel like a little bit like it's our hidden gem because we like it. And like, I feel like not a lot of people have seen it. And then whenever you find somebody that's seen it, you're like, oh, you want to talk about it?
It's funny too, because it's hidden right out in the open.
Well, it's in the woods.
Because
That was a good one, me. Thanks.
It's on Netflix, and the cover of it just looks like all those other covers of things that are not The Ritual.
It is very stupid.
But then when you watch it, it's The Ritual.
It is very much.
And you're like, why aren't more people telling me about this on podcasts? So, Mandy. Have you seen Mandy?
Never heard of it. Is it a movie about Nicolas Cage and this other woman that I can't remember her name? And there's like a sadistic, crazy cult, but mostly every frame of the movie just looks like a beautiful piece of artwork, and Nicolas Cage freaks out, which is not different than any other movies. And I think it is pretty good. Have you ever seen it yet?
Is it the one with him and Pedro Pascal, and they do a bunch of drugs and they're best friends, and it's super cute, and for some reason it's like hilarious how in love they are with their little bromance?
That movie is so funny. I can't even remember the name of it. It's
The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
It's The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
Yes, and it's great. It is great.
We'll talk about that on another one or something.
Yep, that's our 5th category. Movies that are hilarious even when it's not October.
Oh, shit.
Well, we'll have to do that category next time. But yes, Mandy is very intense. It's like watching doom or black metal music come to life. It just has that aesthetic of like just being slow and plotting and methodic. And then by the end, you're just like, I don't know why this was so entertaining, but it really kicked ass that last little bit.
It's so good. I'm going to talk about my favorite scene in the movie.
Is it a spoiler?
No. There's a movie. Well, I don't care.
Yeah.
There's a part in the movie when he...
Spoiler tags.
Spoiler tags. Move on. Probably 45 minutes is when I'm going to talk about it. He's freaking out in this room. And Nicolas Cage always freaks out for real. He he's not acting. And then so the camera is panning in, And it's slowly panning as he's freaking out. And all of a sudden, the camera starts to back up a little bit. And then it starts to go in again because the cameraman was genuinely afraid that he was going to get hit with something or he was going to strike the camera. So, another really good reason to watch the movie.
Yeah, the other part of that I've heard, the other rumor, is that part of him backing up at that point is because it's like unnerving to him, but also because what Nicolas Cage has just done is so over the top. He's like starting to reset, like, oh, that's definitely a blown take. And then, but then Nicolas Cage keeps going and is so much more insane that they're like, we got to use this take. But it's weird because I feel like in any movie that wasn't Mandy, it would look like overacting. And in this movie, it preps you for what is about to happen in the second half.
It's weird though, because I don't know. Usually Nicolas Cage is never overacting in any of his movies.
It's true.
I hope Nicolas Cage isn't watching this. If he is, please come on the show.
Yeah. Close your eyes. Oh, Jesus. Open them. Horrifying. All right. So next, what do we want to... Let's talk about Chopping Mall. People can watch you smile about a movie. Is this your favorite movie, not just on this list, but of all time?
Oh, it's not my favorite movie of all time. It's probably my favorite. It's on my top 5. It's my favorite bad horror movie. How's that?
That's a good segue to what we're going to talk about next, which is my favorite bad horror movie. But
you want me to talk a little bit about Chopping Mall?
Yeah.
Chopping Mall. The best cover art you'll ever see for a movie. But then it's not in the movie at all. It's just completely like they made the poster so they could sell it. And then it is not at all.
I wonder if this is one of those things. Well, actually, this connects,
very low budget.
This connects in a couple of ways. So the two people that are there for the safety demonstration at the beginning are the two people that are they're in a lot of weird low budget horror stuff, most famously Eating Raoul. But they are, I forget what the actress's name is.
Mary Warrenov.
But at least her. She is in Terror Vision, which is another amazingly entertaining, terrible movie.
That's your favorite.
I'm convinced when I'm watching it that maybe it is.
I mean,
but it's also a little bit slower than I want it to be, so I got to nitpick it. But what I was going to say is I'm wondering if Chopping Mall, like Terror Vision, was made like this. Terror Vision, they commissioned somebody to make 5 or 10 movie posters, and then they reverse engineered the movie from the poster. So they literally drew the poster of that alien and then wrote a script that would include those shots in it.
But I feel like the Chopping Mall poster then was that exact scenario, but they never bothered to watch. They just blindfolded them and then they just threw a dart at it and was like, "That's the one." I don't care what the movie is.
That was their plan. He was like, "Make a movie that goes with this poster," and they're like, "Why don't we just slap that poster on this other movie? It's in a mall, shopping, duh. The end. We're done. It's cut, print, ship.
The mall. There's shopping." But is it anything like that?
You got your mall and you got your chopping. Put them together. Chopping Mall.
Waitress, more butter. That's all I'll spoil for that movie.
The plot of Chopping Mall is amazing. So basically they get some new security robots and then suddenly the robots get struck by lightning and then can't tell friend from foe.
Because why not?
And then they run amok. But yeah,
they run amok. That's a very light way to put it. Look at that.
All right, so that's Chopping Mall. So my favorite terrible horror movie is Hack-O-Lantern. Hack-O-Lantern got its start as a movie, I think, called Halloween Night, and it was passed around a lot on VHS back in the day because it wasn't distributed, so it had this reputation for being like this crazy horror movie that nobody had seen that they wouldn't even release. Turns out they didn't release it because it was extreme. They didn't release it because it was terrible. But it is...
terribly good.
It is incomprehensibly bad.
I can't even remember the movie.
There are so many scenes
I just know that the power's in the blood.
there are so many scenes where your jaw just hits the floor going, why would you make this? Why would you write this script? Why would you have them say that dialogue? Why would you use that take of it? And it's just confusingly bad. But it also has pumpkins in it. It also has a Halloween party. It also has some other horror elements. It's got one of my favorite things as we talk about trash movies. One of my favorite things is a song that is very specific to the movie. So, just anything that has like a theme song, like Miami Connection has those couple of songs from Dragon Sound. The Hobgoblins has what MST3K famously
I feel like you're giving away all of the bad, great movies.
thinks is Fish Picker. But I forget what the actual name of that song is. But yeah, we'll talk about all these eventually. But
maybe we'll just have a whole segment on bad, good movies.
We should. Yeah, I love any movie that has like a very unique song in it. To the point that my band covered this song.
What's the name of your band, Adam?
The band is called The Archivists, and we'll put a link below. But the song is Devil's Son by DC LaCroix.
It's so good.
And it is very 80s.
If you like music, it's really good.
It's very 80s, so we tried to punch it up a bit. But, But yeah, love the song, love the movie, love the vibes, and it is just terrible and trashy.
Yeah, if you can get your hands on it.
Worst.
Next.
The worst in the best kind of way. Next,
worst and the best.
Next, we are down to the last one in this category, which is the WNUF Halloween special. If you haven't seen this, I don't know if I would just call it a movie. So the plot of this thing is, it is supposedly a special from a local television station in the 80s that it aired one time, and then that was it because the cops confiscated it as evidence. But this is one of those things where, like, I know we used to see it on Channel 11 around here, where, like,
if you are from the Madison County area, you will, or the St. Louis Metro East area. Yeah. Channel 11 is whatever your local channel was as well. And if you grew up in the 80s/90s, you know what channel you watched and what that was. And whatever you saw on there, this is that movie.
Yeah. Well, it's
movie.
Yeah, so this is the setup of this is it's supposed to be real footage. Spoiler alert, it's not. They made this 5 years ago, whatever. But the local TV station for their newscast sends out a guy that doesn't want to do it to a haunted house to interview kids that are at this haunted house.
The kids are so staged and punky, and they're
so then
I would have killed to be in this movie.
They have a seance trying to bring the ghosts back that were murdered in the house or whatever.
Yeah.
But the whole point of this is that it has recreations of 80s commercials, which are on point. Like, it literally feels like watching this on Halloween night in 1987. And then it goes through stretches where it's boring and where it's literally just kind of like the filler that it was whenever you would watch those things before. And then by the end, it goes off the rails, but in a completely realistic way. Like, it doesn't get weirdly supernatural.
If you're throwing a Halloween party and you turn this on and no one's really paying attention, I guarantee you more than one person would say, oh, what is this newscast that you have put on during our Halloween party?
Yeah.
It is very realistically bad 80s. It's so good.
It literally feels like you picked up a VHS tape with no label on it and went, what the hell is this? And put it in, and then found out that it was, a 40-year-old gold mine.
Right.
So, highly recommended.
Highly recommend it.
If you are our age or older, it will hit a certain vibe that you will definitely remember, and that will be funny. And if you're younger than us, then you'll watch it, and I don't know if you'll like it, but you'll get a taste of what it was like to grow up in the 80s watching trash on television.
You saying that out loud. I don't think you would. Yeah, back in the day, you had to watch the television through the whole commercials. There was no skipping. There was at least a minute and a half of commercials.
It was
always. Is there a part 2?
Was it the best or was it the worst
Of
the 80s?
At the time, it was totally fine and normal. I liked watching TV movies when they always substituted like the cuss words and you dish rag, you get out of here.
We either need to cut all of this or we need to start it with a little title card that says like old man corner.
No way, this is the best. All of the old people that are watching this are us.
Spoiler alert, we're old.
We're old. Ooh-wee.
Oh, my bones.
Oh, my bones are scraping together.
All right, so that does it for all of these lists, except for one thing that we need to circle back to.
What's that?
That is what I think. I mean, do we agree on this, that the best movie on this list in any of these categories? Sleepy Hollow? I mean, talking about movies to watch in the month of October and all of these things. It's got some nightmare elements. It's got some campiness to it. It's got,
so many beheadings.
I wouldn't show it to an 8-year-old, but it is, I mean, if you got teenagers, it's, I don't want to say family friendly, but it's not going to be awkward like watching, Nightmare on Elm Street or something where.
Fine. Our parents showed us Gremlins. I mean, they didn't seem to have an issue with that.
That's true. That's true.
I would say that Sleepy Hollow is a fantastic Halloween movie. There is multiple beheadings. The blood always looks like paint.
Hold on.
So it's like,
hold on.
Go on.
There are multiple beheadings, but one of the things is that the horseman's sword is as hot as hell, so it immediately cauterizes the wounds. So you get a little bit of blood, but you don't get like Terrifier, like bodies laying around, like bleeding out, like all the craziness or whatever. It's not like, you say it's filled with beheadings, but it's not like Dead Alive with a horse in it. It's like, it's relatively tame for what it is. I would say that Tim Burton does a really good job of riding the line of letting it be the thing that it is. It is a possessed horseman that cuts people's heads off without it being as horrifying as that could be.
The Van Garrett seal broken. That's my favorite line in the movie. Even when I play it over here in the store, I'll go over and I rewind it so I can turn it up and listen to it again because it makes me laugh.
I think I have the beginning of the line wrong, but the one that's always in my head is, the horseman is a man of flesh and blood, and I will discover him. Because he's so sure at the beginning that there is nothing going on. Spoiler alert, he's wrong. He's a bunch of shit going on.
Very wrong. This movie is also filled with so many amazing cast.
Yeah.
Johnny Depp, Christina Ricci, Phil Donahue, Christopher Walken.
Phil Donahue?
Huh?
Maury Povich is in it.
Joan Rivers is in it.
They have that domestic dispute that Jerry Springer helps them.
Yeah.
They can't get the horse that Steve is trying to wrangle the horse to the ground. It's kicking over all the chairs.
Let's see who the horse's real father is.
The results are in. You are the horseman.
Just little blood comes out. He's so mad.
What I love about it is it has a ton of elements that are in other horror movies, but they're not. I mean, it's all tropey stuff, but it's not overdone and it's not overplayed.
It's so very much Tim Burton movie, though. That's what's so great about it. It's
campy enough. Like you have that, like you were saying at the beginning, you have, Ichabod comes to the town and he's a doctor that's into science, and he is absolutely sure that he is going to be able to solve this and that there's nothing mysterious going on. The only problem is that he has a weak stomach and he hates doing everything he's got to do to solve this.
Yeah, it is so funny. He touches things and gets...
But it just sets... The first, not to give spoilers, but for the first, 3 minutes of the movie, there's like a beheading that goes there a little more than you think it would. And then when Ichabod shows up, he's performing the autopsy, and there's like, obvious paint like spraying in his face.
Yeah.
Which is like, so those two things together kind of set the tone for the movie of like, we're not going to hold back, but also we're going to throw some campiness in here. Like, we're really doing this, but it's not too serious. And I think it rides that line.
It's such a great balance.
It really is. I mean, so for instance, to give another spoiler, Horseman goes into a cabin, chases this mom into the cabin, and the kid is watching from under the floorboards. And you're like, okay, where is this going? Well, they imply that he didn't hold back, and that kid was at the wrong end of a horseman. I'll put it that way.
The mom gets beheaded.
Yeah, but then he walks out just kind of like tightening the bag, and there's obviously more heads in the bag. So if you think about it, you know that they didn't pull any punches right there. They didn't show anything horrifying.
I forgot about that scene. But that scene is really... That scene is really upsetting.
If you think about it, but if you just watch it, it's not oppressive. It's not like Texas Chainsaw Massacre where it's like, you have to pay attention to this. We're making you have this experience, whatever else. In The Horseman, it's just like, yeah, so, he gets these people, okay, moving on, back to Ichabod. What's happened over here? What's going on with this? And it just kind of, as weird as it sounds, breezes through all of the murder and beheadings and doesn't dwell on them.
I think that was a quote on the poster.
Yeah.
Breezy beheadings.
It
quotes.
Unlike the Ritual.
New York Times.
Unlike the Ritual, which I don't know if you remember, takes place in the woods. Real woods. In Sleepy Hollow, the woods are like obviously on a soundstage where they're controlling the moon, they're controlling the fog, and every single tree looks like it was made by hand by the art department. And it is fantastic.
Speaking of trees, that tree at the end, woo!
Yeah.
Sometimes I see dead trees around town and I'm like, oh, I hope there's not a beheaded horseman in there. Ugh.
I'm going to go on a soapbox rant here for a second.
No.
And I'm going to say that something like Sleepy Hollow, if you want... Oh, it's sleepy, I get it. If you want to know why people like us nitpick and complain about some things, it's because when you watch something like Sleepy Hollow, literally everything down to that tree, they're like, well, what does this windmill look like? It looks, ominous and oppressive. Okay, put it on a hillside, shoot up angles at it, and light it so it looks like it's towering over you in every shot.
It's also exactly the same in the Frankenweenie short.
Yes.
Which is fantastic.
Oh, and in Frankenweenie, the animated one, by the way, I noticed this thing last time I was watching it. Here's a deep cut for nerds. There is like beer or something in casks, and it's got something written in French. I Googled what it says in French. It says 3 windmills.
Ah!
And I was like, this is literally the third windmill that he has filmed that looks just like this. Yeah.
What the fudge, brownies and Coke. Dang.
But yeah, so then that tree is like, what is this going to look like? Oh, it's going to look creepy and horrifying. And it is just a tree. It's also probably the most horrifying thing in that movie.
Yeah, it was like they took a dead tree and they went, and they pulled it and twisted it.
Yeah.
It's so good. God,
and it's like real gross next to it.
Anyway, moral of the story is, that movie's fantastic.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it,
I'm sorry about your life.
Recommend it? Do you recommend it?
Fine.
I mean, it's all right if you like stuff that's awesome.
Yeah. If you don't like anything that's awesome, then don't watch it.
Yeah, if you're like, you know what would suck is if I ended up being entertained, then don't watch it. But if you're like pro being entertained, then, give it a go.
Protainment.
All right, Joe. So to recap, family movies.
That was a good joke. You son of a bitch.
Frankenweenie, Monster House, Ernest Scared Stupid, Paranorman, Garfield's Halloween Adventure. Halloween Time movies, Trick or Treat, Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, House of a Thousand Corpses, Donnie Darko, Sleepy Hollow. I'm going to pause here for a second because I do think we need to say, you need to at least say one thing about Halloween 3 Season of the Witch.
It's so good. That's
okay, 2 things. Because who's in it, Joe, and how do you feel about him?
Tom Akins is in it. He is my hero. thrill me. He does not say that in the film, but he is one of my favorite human characters in life.
Did that have any bearing on what you named your store?
Absolutely not. Also, Tom Akins, if you can show up here, would be great.
Also, Halloween 3 is not a Halloween Michael Myers movie.
A lot of people are very upset. I, on the other hand, find it to be extremely entertaining.
Because it is. I think it's a double-edged sword that it is a Halloween movie because, for one, I think it probably wouldn't have had the same audience if it wasn't a Halloween movie, but also a lot of that audience was pissed that Michael Myers wasn't in the movie.
Yeah.
So I think it would have been, maybe less successful, but more of a cult movie if it hadn't been Halloween.
Yeah.
But yeah, you should definitely check out Halloween 3. Just don't expect Michael Myers
just get
to
over
show up.
that it's not a part of the Halloween series and just accepted that it's an amazing Halloween film.
Yeah.
And that Tom Akins is one of the best actors of all time.
All right. So that does it for our list. But we got something else. I'm going to flip over to this other part of the newsletter.
Is this some kind of surprise that I don't know about?
Not at all.
Oh. Wow.
But I do want to ask you, because I didn't make it out to this, unfortunately, because of my scheduling conflict, but what'd you feel about Terrifier 3?
It was very much a Terrifier movie.
That's what I've heard.
It was actually, I'm not going to lie, because I woke up very early that morning that I was going to go see the movie. I started watching Terrifier 2 again at 4 a.m. And I'd forgotten kind of like what was going on. And Terrifier 3 is actually better than part 2.
Yeah.
They're starting to develop a lore.
Right.
Which I really enjoy because they're not just like, oh, we'll put a mask on this guy and for some reason he's alive again, or there's another murderer and something. They're actually starting to figure out like a reason and a purpose.
Right.
The problem is,
is
that the guy does not know how to edit a film. It does not need to be 2 hours.
Did Terrifier 2 need to be 2.5 hours?
Jesus. No, that's what I'm saying. Like 90 minutes in and out. Yeah. Like that's all I need.
Yeah.
Like you get the point. You understand. It's like every scene. Some of the scenes, I'm not kidding. Like I kind of started to think about Neil Breen a little bit, just because of the way he would repeat him, like how he repeats himself and not cut. These were cutted, but like it's just like like we're doing right now. Like we should have cut probably 5 or 10 minutes ago.
Well, I would say,
but it's ultimately the movie. I liked it. Ultimately, I'm starting to like Terrifier more and more.
I'm kind of split on Terrifier.
I get it because of the chainsaw scene.
Have you seen Bone Tomahawk? So I'm kind of split on Terrifier though, because I think what it made me realize is that all of there's this sadistic streak through several things that I just don't like. Like, I feel like just watching people go through certain levels of punishment, it just doesn't resonate for me. Like
Fair.
I really like the first Saw movie in that it's like it's like a lower budget 7. So I'm like it from that perspective. I still have never seen it. I like it from that perspective, but the further you get along in that series, the more I'm like, this is just making me uncomfortable watching these people go through this. And I don't find I get why other people are entertained by it. It just doesn't land for me for some reason. So I will say though, the last time I rewatched Terrifier 2 because I thought I was going to make it out to 3. And what I thought about it was that thinking of it more from the perspective of him being, leaning into that lore of like him being like crazy and this is the thing that he is doing and that he is like literally possessed and his mission is to do this thing to people. that being his animation and like the underlying reason why that character exists makes it more entertaining to me. Also, that second movie is too long.
Well, I can't wait for you to see the third one then, because it's just as long and equally boring in parts that need to be boring.
The gore doesn't. It's weird because it doesn't bother me. At some level, I'm not going to say that like I'm completely desensitized to it, but at some level, I'm like, these are special effects,
right?
And the more I dislike it, the more I think, why are you showing me this?
It's a special effects reel for all of the people that make the movie. That's all it is.
Right.
I mean, they do a great job. It's just one of those things where you're like,
yeah, I don't know why it doesn't 20%. Land. I mean, it's weird because, as we'll talk about on this podcast eventually, like with aliens and whatever else, like I am just fascinated by the mechanics of how they pull off certain special effects. Mm-hmm. But some of that stuff, I'm just like, I don't like, even from I'm like, the fact that it makes you uncomfortable isn't like, that to me feels like an easy way to get a rise out of somebody. So it's like, yeah, just show somebody doing this terrible thing that you wouldn't want to happen, and you're naturally going to get people to squirm.
Yeah, it's just shock value.
Right. I mean, it's the same with jump scares, where I'm just like, yeah, if you play a loud noise and show a thing suddenly, I physically have the reaction of having a jump scare. That's not frightening. That's not whatever else. It just becomes obnoxious when they haven't earned it. And I feel like it's that same kind of feeling with the second one, as it was just like,
well, you're just going to
just like, I get it, but I mean, I'm intrigued to see the third one, basically just because so many people saw it and were like, this is a thing that we like. I'm like, I want to see how far it goes, just to know how to judge other people for liking it.
I want to do my own. I want to do the Joe Winnicke edit, where it's like I can just cut it down probably about 30 minutes off of it. Mm-hmm. Like just scenes that just go on at least 2 or 3 minutes too long. And you're like, this is completely unnecessary for it to go on too long.
My problem,
it's aggravating.
My problem with the second one is that I feel like it's the effects and everything. It would be a decent slasher movie, going over the line, but it would be a decent slasher movie if it had less story in it. It would be a decent movie if it had less slasher elements in it, but it's got too much of both. Mm-hmm. And then it makes you think about both of them so much that it just doesn't find that right mix. So, and I know everyone in the comments is going to be like, no, it would be 5 hours and I would watch it.
I don't know if that's okay. Well, I don't know. Please leave a comment if you think that the movie is too long, or if it's not long enough.
The irony of calling something too long when we just keep going on about it.
Yeah, I know. Maybe we should wrap this up. I know, I have to pee. All right. So, which is also a really big shock.
All right. This is it. We're wrapping up this episode.
This is the one. This is the notes on the end.
This was our Halloween episode.
Yeah. Look how spooky it is. I have a pumpkin and another one. And there's
a fog machine, but it's not turned on.
There is a fog machine nearby that does not work.
Before we started talking about Terrifier, this was a small child.
Yeah. Gross.
Anything else about the Halloween season you want to throw out there? Anything come to mind that people should see or do?
I would say
next month is going to be hard. Trying to get 20 movies together to watch for Thanksgiving.
20 movies?
Yeah, 20 Thanksgiving movies. It's the format of the podcast now.
Touche. I don't know. I'd say go out with trick-or-treating or go to the Halloween parades in your town.
Yeah.
Support your local Halloween parades. Gather as much candy as possible. Maybe throw it back at them sometimes because they're terrible.
Be the house that gives away full-size candy bars.
Oh, I know a guy that gives away full-size candy bars.
Yeah?
Yeah, he's operating the camera. He gave me a bunch of Snickers. And I ate one earlier, and I'm very sick now.
Yeah?
In a good way, though, because I'm just fucking pumped full of sugar. It's terrible.
How much longer do you think we can trail off?
I guess we could just stop. So, anyway, that's our second episode. Thanks for
Yay.
watching. If you watched all the way to the end, you did it.
Yeah, and if you've watched 2 of these now, we're trying to make this one a little bit better with the edit, a little bit quicker pace than that first one that ran a little long. So let us know. Leave a comment if you got thoughts on.
Yeah. And
what we're
probably
doing
next time we do this might be something completely different. Maybe there'll be another human involved, or maybe it will be just one movie or 2 movies. Might have some turkey we might be eating, just slathering that in our face. I don't know what I'm talking about. So anyway, thanks for watching, everybody.